Episode 2. Should turn this into a podcast. Getting unstuck with Slack. So, great insights from Danny and Byron, fellow Slack community leaders. Super stoked to have them here. So this series is all about showing you what's possible out of the box. We know that things can get, sometimes expensive in the ecosystem. So we really want to make sure that you're getting all of the value out of the base functionality, right? And there's a ton of use cases for all of the Slack features. So really excited to walk through some of this with you. And we're going to switch up the order. So disregard the order of the agenda, but welcome. And then we're going to meet Danny, and he's going to walk us through how he got unstuck, and then we'll switch it up. So bear with me as I scroll through some of the slides pretty quick. My name is Nicole. I'm the King of Prussia PA Slack community leader. I am a senior project manager at Czopek, where I get to have fun every day helping people with Slack and Salesforce and leading an awesome group of PMs. You can find me on LinkedIn and all over the place in the Slack community. If you haven't joined the Slack community yet, please do. I can pop a link in here while Danny or Byron are presenting, but would love to have you there to keep the flowing. So Danny, Byron, thanks again so much. As you can see, Danny is Jacksonville, Byron is Chicago. So very much appreciate your time. Danny, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your favorite Slack feature.
Sure. Yeah. Danny Sanchez here, Jacksonville community leader. Been leading the community here for a little over 2 years now. It's awesome. My favorite Slack feature that I miss all the time in every other virtual meeting software is GIFs and huddles. I mean, I can't live without it.
Yeah.
And I also can't be serious in a huddle meeting because I'm always sending GIFs. So if you're in a huddle with me, you're guaranteed to get a GIF in the meeting. No other tool does that. Name another tool that does that. I'll wait. I don't think there's one. So yeah, that's my favorite. It's way better than emoji. Yeah, just happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Brian, I know you're working on getting your demo set up. You want to do a quick intro? Tell us about your favorite Slack feature.
Of course, and apologies for being a few minutes late. We were kind of dealing with a security issue at work.
Nice.
So, yeah. So my name is Byron Czopek. I'm a certified Slack consultant and admin with Sogeti, part of Capgemini. And favorite feature I would say would be actually Workflow Builder, which I'm gonna go into depth on my presentation here in a little bit.
Awesome. All right, bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna do the old slide shuffle. We're gonna skip to Danny's if my window would cooperate. Never a dull moment. Okay. Skip. I'll make it up to you with posting some corny jokes in the channel. Okay, I'm super excited to share this slide. It's probably one of the best ones I've seen all day. All right, Danny, kick us off.
Yeah, had to go with this one. So let's get unstuck with me. Yeah, this might be how you feel. If you want to go to the next slide, especially if you're new in Slack. I didn't mention it, but been doing Slack consulting for 3 years now. Was doing Salesforce consulting before that. And if you work with people, or if you're a Slack admin at a company, or you work with companies who are launching Slack or adopting Slack, you've probably heard sentences that start with these things before. Probably, I can't find, very much heard. Slack's too noisy, and then I can't find. Where is something? Where's that message? Where's that channel? There's too many channels. It's hard to keep track. I think everyone at some point has said this before. Even people who are experienced in Slack probably have said this before, depending on the scale of your Slack instance. You have externals, you have Slack Connect, you have internal project channels. I mean, if you're even super users have, the techniques I'll show today are what is helpful, at least for me, in keeping track of everything, not only in single workspaces. Again, this could be across workspaces. If you're an enterprise grid administrator, also if you're like everyone on this call, you're probably in the Slack community, you're probably in other communities, you're probably in your home workspace or grid that you use for work. So a lot of stuff. And I will say that maybe this is another session, Nicole, getting unstuck across workspaces or across, there's not really, that's more of a soft skill, not a soft skill, but more of a technique. There's not really features for that. I know that's been raised. I've seen that raised in the community of how to, set a status across all your workspaces or set yourself away across all workspaces. There's not really a good way to do that kind of stuff. So won't cover that today. We'll focus on being within one workspace and using some of the features that can help you get unstuck.
Awesome idea, though. I love the thought for the next session.
Yeah, I think Slack will probably have to do something there at some point. They just have to help everyone get unstuck with those things. But these are the main things I want to go through and then show some demos. I'm gonna do it live. I'm just gonna show the Slack community workspace and how I use all these features within it, because there's always interesting stuff going on within the workspace itself. But working from left to right, one of the main things, Byron mentioned it, and he'll show a lot about this in his demo and his discussion in a little bit. But workflows are really good for proactively managing your workspace. So scheduled workflows are something that I see a lot of people use first, right? If you're in Slack, historically, maybe you were in a tech company, daily stand-ups were happening, or a product company. Those are a no-brainer to automate in Slack. So you proactively are organizing updates, either to go into a meeting or to cancel your stand-up meeting and just have them in Slack. These are workflows for that use case really isn't used as much in the Slack community, so I'm not going to show that. But in your own use cases, in your workspaces, that's a great way to do things. Weekly status updates, weekly scrums, monthly, quarterly check-ins, quarterly planning, all those kind of things. Even if it's just a reminder to you have to do those things and then linking to details or something like that, it's a great way to proactively remind yourself that you have to do something. Byron will also cover that they're a great way to set up link-triggered data capture. So instead of someone going into a channel and saying something and you having to respond in a thread and get more information, you can just set up a form that captures information that is structured. So when someone has a problem, has a question, has an issue in any channel, right, they can just raise that form up, they can click it, and then you get all the information you need. It saves a bunch of time on back and forth. And again, it organizes all the information, have that posted into a channel. And I know Byron will cover this, so I won't talk about it too much more. But workflows are just good for are really good for proactive planning if you know kind of what you want to do, like if you have an idea of how you want to capture information. Say you're new to Slack. In a lot of cases, a lot of companies I've worked with, or even internal companies I've been a Slack admin with, have not had workflows set up initially, or it just was not something that they were actively doing. Maybe they were new to Slack. Maybe they've been using Slack for a long time and they just never thought about it. So I would say in a lot of cases, workflows maybe are out of the picture for people that are new to Slack. So moving on to later, reminders and search, these things there is really no setup required for them. You can do proactive reminders, but most of these things are retroactive. So when you think about a use case of, well, I can't find it. I know it's in Slack, but I can't find it. Or how do I organize the things for my day so I can get work done or get back to it later? That's where these things come into play. So later is definitely one of the best things. It used to be called saved. So before maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, all you could do was you could go onto a message, you could save it, and then you could go into your sidebar, into a saved section, and see all your saved messages. So I used to use that because, right, if there was an important update for a project, or say there's an HR channel where there was some update about a policy or a benefit, you might want to save that because it's relevant to you. You read it, but you want to save it for later because, again, you can go search for it and we'll talk about that, but maybe you wanted to put it in a specific bucket. That was a great use case for saving information. They went and made that even more robust by releasing later, which is now saved, but with 3 different statuses. So when you save something to your later, it goes into an in progress bucket. You can then mark it as complete, which then moves it to a completed bucket, or you can archive it, which is the backfilled data from your save. So if you had saved something previously, that goes into archived, but really now I'll show it in a second. You mark something as later, you can go and work on it at some later time when you have the time, and then you can complete it, and you have a whole history of that. So if you ever want to go through that, you have the history. It's really great. I'll show that in a sec. I use it all the time in a community because Again, a community use case is great for later because unless your full-time job is Jacob and you are the community leader, you're probably not in the Slack community 24/7. Maybe you're in there a lot, but not 24/7. So you go in, probably have your sidebar lit up. You have a bunch of stuff you want to read. Just mark all that stuff as later. You can come back and review it, 8 p.m. or having a beer, just like checking in on what's going on in the Slack developer channel. Really easy to use. Moving on to reminders. These can be used as proactively or retroactively with later. So in the example I just showed, so there's an interesting thread in the developer channel about building a bot, something that you've wanted to do, but you're not doing actively. Maybe you put that in later, and then you remind yourself you want to look at that a week from now. Or since it's the holidays, I want to pick that back up January 6th, the Monday after the holidays. I don't really want to look at it now. Let me just do a reminder to look at it then. That's a great way for reminders. And then you can actually do proactive reminders. So for people out there who have to do timesheets on Fridays, you can do a remind me on Friday at 2 p.m. every week to do my timesheet. And it just sends you a message. I mean, that's something you can spin up in chat. Yeah, channel reminders are also great for that same context, actually. If everyone in that channel needs to submit their timesheet, just do / remind this channel to submit their timesheets by 5 p.m. on Friday, something like that. It's done. It's a single sentence, press enter, the reminder set up forever. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. And then I'll stop talking and I'll show a demo in a second. But the last thing that really you can do without using any of this, you don't use workflows, you don't use later, you don't use reminders, you're brand new to Slack. I say this to a lot of customers that I work with. Almost everyone right now knows how to use this search engine, right? You'd be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't know how to use Google, Bing, whatever search engine you want to use, So you take that same concept and you put it into Slack, and you have access to all the information that you've ever had in Slack, right? So if you're stuck and you can't find something, you take the same idea of how you use Google search to find a question you need an answer to, and just use that internally to Slack, and you can retroactively retrieve pretty much any information that you want to find. And I'll show you some examples of that in the community right now. But last two things down at the bottom I wanted to call out is really, really great ways also to get unstuck that link into some of this stuff. Again, maybe for the more advanced keyboard shortcuts. I mean, is it Command K? Command K or Command G? I use it all the time. It takes you up to the search bar and makes searching super quick. You can get to later that way also. And then Slack templates, including lists and canvases. So as you start to progress in how you want to capture your information, you can take workflows you've created and actually populate lists with the information. You can take workflows you've created and take that data and put it into canvases. And so, again, thinking through like the maturity of your organization, where you guys are at, or where your company or where your use case is at, you might want to look at using those features on top of these kind of core native, call them Slack basic functionalities, aside from workflow builders, can be advanced.
I love that you're calling out Slack templates. It's my new favorite thing.
I know. I just went in and built a custom one because I was wondering if anyone would talk about that on this one, because I was curious if they were going to release custom templates, and it's great to see that it's out there. It's awesome.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, you ready to show it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you have the screen share.
All right. So many windows. Let's see. This is it. All right, great. Is it extremely small on everyone's screen?
I'll say a little, but still, there we go.
All right. So as a first thing, so I won't cover workflow. I'll let Byron cover that. First thing you notice is left-hand sidebar later is already lit up. Thank you, SB. I'll do another small on my screen too. Left-hand side, you see on my home tabs, all the way on the left, I have later as part of one of my components that I have there. Definitely recommend that. You notice I actually have one overdue, right? So when I talked about reminders with time associated to it, you see two things. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So these top two, right, as you can notice here, this one's overdue. I was talking to Scott. Super hot off the presses info. There's some cool stuff coming from Scott in the community. I wonder if he's not on this call. There'll be some cool stuff he's working on for March of next year. Then Agentforce, I'm doing an Agentforce event. I want to make sure that I invoice this event as soon as the event is over. So January 14th, that's 29 days from now, I've set a reminder for myself with a link to my invoice, right, that I paid for the space, so that I remember to submit this invoice. So you start to see these things. I just DM'd myself this invoice. Sure, there's lots of ways you could probably do this, but this is the way to use it because it's quick and easy in Slack. I actually submit the invoice directly in Slack, right? So great use cases here. This one with Scott, I'm getting back to him. We're working through some ideas about an application he's building. And then what you notice beyond the first two that actually have reminders with times or due dates is no due date. So these are things I've added to my later to review at some point in time. So example from Christina here. So there was an AMA last week about AI, and I asked a question about the shift in AI for desk workers, and that some people think AI is lazy. And there's like this whole part of this report that they put out is that some managers or some people are scared of saying they use AI because that could reflect poorly on them. And so I asked that question, right? And then they got back to me. I had to go back to some other task I was doing. So I just saved it to my later. And you'll notice it's still in progress. I've read it a few times. I just haven't had the time to review it and ask a question back or think. But I did want to save it to come back to. So again, and then, Christine, this one's a great one that I wanted to share this with someone. If you haven't used wowmoji.dev, it's a great one to make emojis of your faces. So these are things that are in my later in progress. At some point, I'll come in here, sweep them up, clean them up, and that'll be the end of it. But just a few differentiators here. You can set due dates here on them, or you can just leave them in here and just look at them at some point in time. One other thing I'll cover on later, because I mentioned it, right? You have 3 buckets. You have the in progress. So if I come and actually mark this message from Nicole, save for later, right? It'll put it here. If I then mark this as complete, it'll move that to the completed tab here. So I have a whole history of everything I've ever completed. And then the archived is just what was saved. So these are really old messages. You notice some of them are deleted. So these are probably a couple years old at least. But when you use later now, if you haven't used it before, you'll just have in progress and completed. Pause there. It's like any questions? Pretty straightforward stuff here. I'll go into a members channel just to show what Akshay had mentioned before and do a reminder in here and say, right, so this is a really easy way to do those single line reminders. Again, this could be for yourself. This could be for a channel. Really simple format. You also are able to do remind and pop a window. So you see, I can either go like this and say, remind me to send message every Friday at 5. Not a very valuable reminder, but you'll see how easy it is to set up a reminder for yourself. And then if you wanted to do a more complex one, you can add this. You get better formatting options here than you do with the single line. So a few different ways you can do it. Really, there's this way, there's this modal, there's the single line. And then if I come into later, or actually, I'm sorry, I'll go this way. If I come into, I don't quick actions bar, I guess is what this is called. You actually have the ability to do a reminder here. Same idea. So I can say, remind me about this tomorrow. Saved for later. It's due in 21 hours. If I go back to my later, you'll see it's here again. And it's actually now between my message, that's overdue with Scott and the one I'm going to do in January. So really easy way to make a list of stuff that you want to action at some point in time.
Yeah, that feature that you just showed is a game changer for me. I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I think just context switching all over the place. So in order to help me structure my day, that one has been phenomenal, right? I'm going to do this in 3 hours. I'll do this as an hour, tomorrow, custom time, right? That has been awesome. But I do want to call out to a question, I think, from Akshay. Can we take the list out of the completed task? Can we take the out list of the completed task? Akshay, do you want to talk through that a little bit? Or do you want to rephrase that? Or Danny, do you have an idea of maybe what he's trying to ask for?
So hi everyone. So basically, in the later, I can see there are 10 items which in progress, and there are some items which are archived, and there are some items which has been completed. So can we take out the list from the completed item, in Excel form or .csv?
That's a great question. I think I've never seen that functionality. That's a great point. So this is really this would be a good use case for stuff you want to keep within Slack itself. I will say actually that there's something I do in the community myself. So I created this list called Slack Community Highlights, right? And it's very, very similar to like what I just showed in later. So if I open this up, there's only 2 fields on this. There's the title and the message. If I click the message, it'll take me to the message. So what I use is I use a list for stuff that I potentially would want to export, because lists you can export. So in this, what I'm using my list for here is anytime someone, there's posts all the time from Melissa, Jacob, other people in the community about new features or small updates to Slack functionality. And I want to make sure I have a list of those that I can keep if I ever need them. And so I just use this add to list button. And I say add to list, add to Slack community highlights. So that's a great call out. If you want to manage tasks in a way that's exportable, you want to use lists. If you want to just put something on a list that you can export, later is probably a better use case.
Okay.
Great call.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Also, Mike mentioned good call.
Yeah.
Oh, and Danny, I believe Slack 2 is coming out with a to-do list feature soon as well.
Yeah. Have either of you seen that?
I've seen it around, so I haven't played with it yet. But
Yeah, I'm not. Mike.
It's very rough start, but they're getting it, and they're bringing together lists and to-dos into and even bringing later into the to-dos tab that they're creating. It's pretty cool. It's got hope. There's hope there.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
That's great. I think I'm out of time. I guess the only other thing I do want to cover, just to say it, is Command K. I'm on browser, so I'm a little messed up here, but Command K, right? You can type in later and actually get directly to later. You can go to unread. So you can go to these different buckets. If I can type, you can go to these bucketed places, but you can also search for stuff. So I typed in Agent Force as an example here, right? You get a lot of, if I could search properly, get a lot of results, especially in the Agent Force world, stuff from Jacob. You can filter all these different filters. I mean, this is something I show to people a lot that they don't know exists. They just search and then they don't find what they need and give up. So, you have these, I guess they're default ones. You have these default ones, right? If I was looking for a person named Agent Force, or Canvas had Agent Force, really it leads you on messages, and you can filter. All of these things are very similar to thinking through how you search in Google. So I would just say, if you're searching for something, try to apply the same ideas you think of when you're using a search engine on the web to Slack, and you should have some success here.
Such a great.
And if you had AI, you can also search with conversational language, but I don't have that in this workspace. Sorry, Nicole.
No, you're fine. I was going to say it's. I think everyone's aware of the meme about searching in a certain email system, right? I think of Slack as like a best case scenario for being able to search everything and anything with those filters. And then to your point, like if you happen to have Slack AI, then being able to search out outside of connected systems as well, I think is really cool. But yes, amazing. Thank you for going through all of that. There is a question in the chat around integration between Slack and Asana for that list piece. And I know Mike threw out a comment there too, but I think the list API functionality and connections is up and coming. So even if something's not available today, definitely post your feedback in the feedback channel, because I do know that that's a common ask. But I want to make sure we give Byron a ton of time, or as much as we can. So I'm going to start showing your slides if you're good to go.
Yeah, I can actually share from my screen, and then I can manage the slides there. So yeah, go ahead and take that. And thanks everybody, and thanks to Nicole and Daniel for just on the fly being able to jump in for me there. I had a client issue this morning just with security, making sure nobody was logging into Slack through nefarious means. So thank you both so much for giving me the chance to get resituated and everything. So now I have my demo, so now I can go through. So just reintroduce myself. My name is Byron Czopek. I am a certified Slack administrator and certified Slack consultant. I have experience as a Slack administrator consultant within multiple different industries, be it the tech sector, finance sector, fast food sector, and e-discovery sector. And today I'm going to talk about a client problem that I ran into with ticketing actually for Slack, show kind of how I solved that with Workflow Builder, and also show kind of where I got unstuck when I was incorporating lists into it. So to give you a background, the client that I work with, we do have a confidentiality agreement, so we can't say exactly who they are. But for purposes of this talk today, their name is Big Kahuna Burger. So the fast food client, Big Kahuna Burger, is consolidating team-created Slack workspaces into Slack Enterprise Grid. So they want to restrict Slack access to specific teams and keep the IT ticketing system within Slack to avoid confusion amongst users outside of the approved teams about Slack's availability across the company. Essentially, they don't want to have their ticketing system go through their normal ticketing route because they don't want people to sit there and think, oh, I can now join Slack. It's open for me to join. Big Kahuna Burger's not ready to roll Slack out enterprise-wide yet. They just kind of want to keep it to their development teams. So the issue then becomes, how do we do ticketing for Slack within Slack? So that kind of brings us to creating a Slack support channel. So within Slack, a lot of times, within as Danny was showing, there's a lot of communication between people, just to kind of let you know about different projects and how channels will be set up. In that sense, you can also kind of hack Slack channels using workflows to basically just kind of create a general support area where users can submit tickets and work with admins to help with any problems they have. This isn't just designated just specifically to IT, although this is going to be kind of IT related, the presentation. You can use these same kinds of workflows and ideas into any support process you have, whether it's a support with your sales team or support with development team, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to hit on these 4 points. The first point is the support process itself. So we're going to kind of understand the process from opening a ticket to working on it to resolving it to eventually closing it. We're going to figure out the process for how admins are going to claim these tickets and end up resolving and working with the users to resolve them. We're going to create a channel where the channel is going to become the central hub for our support. We're going to make sure that people know it's easy to submit a ticket, restrict the posting so that it's not just an open channel where anybody can just kind of post anything, because if you've worked in support before, you'll know that's kind of a red flag there. People can kind of ask for the sky to be turned green, and there's not really much you can do to change that. So we're kind of restrict posting so that it stays on task with making sure that tickets are getting resolved. And then we're also kind of going to allow threading so the users can work with the admins to kind of help them figure out the issue. We're going to create 3 workflows. One workflow is just submitting the ticket. One workflow is for the admins to claim said ticket. And then one workflow is to resolve and eventually close the ticket. And then for reporting, we're going to use the new list feature to kind of track where tickets are in progress. And then using a workflow hack, we're going to move resolved issues from one list and to another list for closed list for reporting purposes, and end up exporting that list into a CSV so we can kind of report out, hey, here's how many tickets we're getting, here's our median time to resolve, things of that nature. So first and foremost, we want to talk about the support process before we get into anything technical that we don't understand. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? So we have 2 channels here. The public-facing channel is going to be help support. And this is just going to be for users and admins, for users to submit a ticket and admins to kind of help them resolve that ticket. Then we're going to have a help support managers, which is going to be a private channel. So, and obviously the difference is that private, you have to be added into the channel ahead of time. So this won't be public facing. This is just going to be for the managers and the admins, so that if, let's say in the support channel, user kind of asks for something outside of scope, the admins and the managers can kind of talk together and kind of come up with a solution here before making it public facing over here. We're going to have 2 lists, a help IT support list, which is going to just basically show the in progress of where the ticket is, and then a closed list, which is just a basic list that shows every ticket that's closed so that we can export it as a CSV after the fact. And then we're going to talk, and then, how it's going to work is this is support flow. So the user up here is going to submit a ticket, which will post in help support, but it's also going to send an alert to managers, so managers know as tickets are kind of coming in, or if they see an issue that keeps coming up over and over again, they can kind of have an idea of how many types of tickets those are coming in. The admin's going to claim and then resolve the ticket, working with the user within this channel. Once they resolve the ticket, that then gets sent over to the help support managers, who are basically going to end up closing the ticket, moving the ticket from the resolve space into the closed space. All right, next we're going to talk about creating a channel. So this might be a little, oh, actually it's clear today. Perfect. All right, so, oh, of course it's got to load. All right, so we're going to do 3 things to get the channel set up. So we have a channel already set up here, help support. So what we'll want to do is in the channel settings, we'll just kind of click over here to settings. First, we're going to edit the posting permissions. Now, the posting permissions are basically just telling who can and cannot post within these channels. So you'll see up here, I'm sending it to org admins plus specific people. So you can set this up to either specific users or a specific user group that you want to be able to post and write in these channels. You'll want to make sure that you add in, when it's under specific people, that you add in, of course, this is giving me all sorts of problems today. There we go. You want to make sure that you add in your workflows, because even though the workflows aren't necessarily actual people, Slack doesn't really know that. So you have to just kind of say, okay, this workflow is okay to post in here to make everything work. And then you'll notice up here, you can't really read it because it's a little bit garbled, but it's clicked allow threads. You want to make sure you have that clicked, checked okay, because that's how users are going to be able to talk, how admins and users are going to be able to talk back and forth with each other in the actual channel. And also promote threading within your Slack workspace for people who might be a little bit new to Slack. So now we've got the channel permissions saved. Next, we are going to get the workflow. Now you'll notice at the bottom here, we kind of have it just open so anybody can write anything within that workflow, within the channel. With the new update within Slack, where we have these, now workflows and featured canvases and everything at the top, you can actually feature a workflow. And the feature workflow actually kind of creates a button. So you can either add a workflow, or as you see here, I have the help IT support workflow. I'll click on the 3 dots, click on feature workflow. And then when I go back into messages, you'll see now there's a big green button at the bottom. So this is basically kind of a idea to, and I apologize about not exactly seeing kind of the screen being a little bit blurry. The internet connection here is a little bit off. So I'd be happy to share these videos kind of with you after the fact. But basically the green button at the bottom now has an area where people can easily click on, and they can easily make a submission. So all right, so getting back to our final thing, we want to make sure that all users are able to join in the channel. So from the org admin workspace, we're going to go into our settings, our channel management, and we want to make sure that the channel is shared across all workspaces before we do this. But then we just create a default channel there, click on next, and we want to make sure that membership is clicked on as required. So that way, when a user first joins the workspace, they are now officially a part of it. They can just easily enter into it without having to add it ahead of time. All right, so that's creating the channel. Let's see how well the next slide goes. All right, workflow. So these are the 3 workflows that we're going to be building. We're building an initial submission, which basically just collects info from a form, adds an item to a list, and then creates kind of the ticket itself. We have the admin claim, which is going to have admins kind of claim the actual issue itself, and then our resolution and close. So let me bring this up. All right, so here's our first one, help IT support. You'll notice at the beginning, it has a trigger. So in Workflow Builder, you have to have a trigger to basically start up your workflows. And that will kind of is kind of like the starting point. So with this one, it's going to be a link, because we're basically just having that green button that you saw at the beginning. When you click on that button, it says, okay, go to this link, and from that link, then it'll pull up and start our workflow. So the workflow itself, when it starts up, it's going to collect info from a form, as you see here. And within the forms, you can basically set up whatever you need to. If you need to set up a multiple choice, a drop down, you can move things kind of around, make certain questions required, certain questions not required. I just kind of made a pretty easy form in here, just kind of saying, hey, what workspace are you in, what issue you're running into. Next, you will have a list. So you'll create your list ahead of time and your fields ahead of time. So it'll then populate all your fields into that list. And you'll notice these blue areas over here. These are going to be your variables. You'll click on these little blue areas in here, and it'll kind of give you an idea of what kind of variables you'll be looking into. So in here we kind of have it's kind of a little bit hard, the answers to all the different questions and everything that you have. Then it's going to send a message to help support. And again, it's just going to use those same variables. This is just the message that you are basically just a message sending to a channel. And you'll find all the different variables kind of within here. I also made sure, you can't really see it right now, but there's an item ID variable within there that you're going to want to make sure. I'm going to try minimizing this. Maybe that'll help. Hold on one second. I apologize, everyone. Let's try. We'll try it on a minimized version. No, it's not the best, but hopefully we can maybe read a little bit easier. So we're sending that message to, this is the message that we'll be sending to the manager's channel. You'll see when we get to the actual demo portion of it at the end, how all this kind of works in with each other. But essentially the workflow is creating the list item and sending messages to both channels using those variables that you saw. And those variables are based on either questions that are answered or actions that are kind of being done within the Slack channel. All right, so this second workflow is going to be the admin looking into your request. Now you'll notice at the top here, this is going to be a little bit different. This isn't going to be like the link workflow that we had at the beginning. This is going to be based on, and this is one of my favorite features, is starting a workflow using emojis. So if I use this eyeball emoji in the help support channel, that's going to kick off this workflow. You'll see kind of when we put everything together, how that kind of helps everything out. So you can like, any different emoji, but that's basically going to, as these tickets are being posted, the admin's going to click on the eyeball emoji. Then they're going to get this message here within the basically whatever message they reacted to is going to get this message with this admin claim button. Now, what the admin claim button is going to do is it's just going to basically update the list and just say, hey, this person who clicked this button now has this ticket. So you'll see that kind of down a little bit below. And with buttons, it's nice. You can kind of edit the buttons. You can have it, as you'll see here, you'll single click, change the color of it. You can restrict it only to certain people who can click the button, so your users won't try clicking the button and then messing up your workflow. Let's see. So now, we're kind of collecting that info into a form. And then as we get to, so the important part of collecting the info into a form is you want to make sure you have that ticket ID number. I'll show you. We kind of copy and paste it. Basically, the reason for that is because you want to basically tell that ticket, hey, go to this ticket, update this ticket, because the Slack is not going to understand how kind of everything works. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead. Let me just tell you about the list really quick here, and then I will show you kind of a little more in demo so that you kind of see kind of how everything works. So we have our help IT support board, which is basically just kind of like a general Kanban board, and then our issues resolved board, which you'll see kind of the hack that we had to do to get this to go. So let me go ahead and get into that demo. And apologies for for all the issues kind of going into it, but here's how the channel looks to a user kind of coming in. So I'm a user. I'll just click on the help IT support. This now brings up our ticket issue. So I'll say I'm in Cloud DevOps. I'll say having trouble logging in. Click on submit there. And now it will post here in this channel, as you can see here, Conan O'Brien user, and here is my ticket. Now on the backend side, you'll notice that I have the login issue right here that's showing up in my channel. And then if I go into the help support managers channel, which is going to be where the managers are going to see all this. It posts there as well with a link to the actual issue itself. So now this side is going to be my admin side. So as an admin, I'll click on the taking a look. Now you'll see it adds here in the replies. This is that reply that I was telling you about with the admin claim button. Now this variable right here, this is the ticket number that we want to make sure that we are using. So that way we can update the actual issue within our lists. So I click on the admin claim button, and it's basically going to ask me for that reference number. I paste that right in, click submit, have that now. And then if I were to go back to that list, you'll see my login process right there has just moved to in progress. So now within here, within the text, I can just kind of text back and forth between myself and my user. Because we have allowed threading, this basically allows the users and the admins to kind of talk back and forth with each other, even though as you can see, the users here can't write anything in the actual channel itself. And then, so now I've got everything fixed. So I click on my add reaction here. This is going to bring in our green check mark. Enter our resolution. So again, I'm going to just basically make sure I have that reference number as this comes up here. I know this is not the greatest resolution, but all fixed. Click on submit there. And then if I go back into my channel here, you'll see at the bottom here, I've got my resolution, my issue detail, and basically all the other information that is needed. So this isn't the end of it. This is basically just saying, hey, I've resolved it. Closing it is a different stature of itself. So let me see, where was I? My apologies. So if I go into the help support channel, help support managers channel, I apologize. Now I've got this final message here, which basically just says, okay, this has been resolved. Go ahead and click on this button to add to our resolved list. So our resolved list is basically just these closed tickets right here. Now the issue with one of the fallbacks with Slack lists, as I'll kind of point out in a little bit, is that you can't really move an item from one list into the other. So what I basically did here is within this channel, I basically just kind of took all the variables and added it here. So that basically we're just creating a brand from this area, we're just creating a brand new issue. So I'll click on the add to resolve, and that creates a brand new issue right at the bottom here. So it basically takes all that information and copies and brings it in, but it also brings in the time that has been resolved as well. And that's just basically based on when the admin actually clicks on the emoji itself. So we have that now all in. The other issue is that we need to physically delete the issue from the manager will need to go in and physically delete this item. There is a archive feature that is coming soon to list. So in the future, doing something like this might be just easier to archive and not have to go through this whole process. But this is kind of just a hack to figure out a way to kind of get around this. So with that said, that all being a mouthful, let me just real quick talk about where I got stuck and unstuck and kind of open it up to any questions. So there we go. So where I kind of got stuck was in two places with lists. As I mentioned before, not having that ability to move from one list to the other. So this kind of shows you essentially what I had to do was take all these different variables that I have in here and then kind of just add them and create a whole new list at the top here. You'll see is closed tickets. And so that will kind of basically not move it, but just kind of make a copy and put it in new closed list. And you want to have that closed list so that you basically just have an archive of everything that's been closed that you can then export as a CSV. And then where I also got stuck was just kind of creating the different variables for these lists. This check mark right here, when you're creating variables to a new list, it'll say generate a form. You want to make sure to uncheck that so that way you're not building a brand new form. It's just kind of a form you can kind of create. And then getting back to that reference number, like I said before, if you want to update something, if you're just saying update from a list, it's not going to, if I were to just say, okay, update this and, show it's resolved, it's just going to create a new ticket with some of the variables, not all the variables. So I want to basically tell Slack, hey, make sure to go to this area so that we can basically update it and move this along in the process. So that's all. Yeah, if there are any questions or anything, I know there was a few people kind of mentioning they had some issues with everything looking blurry.
That's right. We're sending the slides out, and the videos are within the slides, so you'll all get those at the end. Akshay has a question for you. So the list is created first, and then we added the list into the workflow with the forms questions. Is that the process?
That is, yes, that's correct. I can kind of show a little bit of the back end here too. So yeah, the list is created ahead of time, and then so if I go into my going into your workflow builder, it's just in the automations tab over here, and then you'll see kind of my help support. I just edit this. This is kind of what I was attempting to show with all the blurriness. But basically, in workflow builder, you kind of create the different steps in here. So within the list, you want to make sure when, like, if I was going to say, let me close and discard this. So if I was going to update a list, click on here, add items to a list. This will be my new thing. It'll find the different lists that I have, and you'll see I have the uncheck this. And now with all the fields and everything that I have, now I can add all the variables, like the answer to the questions in the form and everything like that. Now we'll be able to kind of show up within here. So hopefully that kind of answers that question.
Any other questions or thoughts? I thought that was a real intake and assist process, Byron.
Oh, thank you.
How long did it take to get through that, like from start to finish with the?
I think you froze there, Nicole. Can you say that again?
How long did it take you to get through that process with your customer?
I mean, depending on the time to resolve and everything, it usually, a lot of these are kind of pretty simple, like, hey, can you rename this channel? Hey, this person needs access. So stuff like this was really about like a half hour to an hour or so, depending on the issue.
Not bad. Yeah, one of my customers is very Slack focused, and they built out an intake process, not as not as many steps as yours, not as many different channels, but definitely intaking from one channel to another and then adding an item to a list. And then they've got the acknowledgement buttons as well. So it's really cool not only to see that use case as helping us work through like our project intake, but their excitement in using it. So they went from not really using Slack as much, like seeing all of the value, to then being able to build out those types of processes themselves. So I love that you walked through everything. And it's probably maybe a little overwhelming at first to start thinking about workflows, but you can get to the point where you're doing all of these things, right?
And the best thing with workflows is just to create a channel and just start playing with it, like out of the box. That's kind of the best way to really learn and work through these kinds of things. Once you figure out ultimately what you want to try and do and think through, okay, how am I going to make it happen and make it work, then you can kind of find a lot of these different things.
Yeah. And I was going to call out that same thing, right? The way that I usually play around is I've got a Slack test channel and I send everything there. It's a great way to start. One more from Akshay, and Danny had a drop. Thank you so much, Danny. How can we create reference number? Can you walk through that process?
Yes, definitely. So this was kind of the a bit of the aha moment on my end. So let me just let the workflow here load up, and I can show you exactly how we did that. So within the ID, so the ID number is going to be the ID number for the actual list itself. It's not really a search. I found it's not like a searchable number or anything like that. It's just kind of a back end thing, but it's really nice kind of a reference point as opposed to using a link or something of that nature. So right over here, you'll see the item ID. If I go into click insert a variable, I'll find from the add item to a list, because what I'm essentially just doing is I'm just kind of looking for how I'm going to add item into the list. You can either do it through the URL, which is just going to give you the URL for the item. But in this sense, we'll just kind of just need that item ID. So it's literally just kind of taking that variable, clicking it in there, and just kind of formatting it wherever you want.
Any other thoughts, questions? I did post Danny's next event in there. So he's got an Agent Force event coming up. I have one as well for the folks that are in the King Prussia, PA area. Byron, are you guys doing the Agent Force event?
I don't believe we have an Agent Force event for Chicago, but I will be there in Chicago this Thursday. And if not there, I'm also on LinkedIn. And feel free to join the Chicago chapter. We do have a lot of virtual events, kind of similar to Nicole's here. We don't have anything really upcoming right now, but feel free to join. We've got a great community of folks within the Chicago chapter. And thank you all so much for your time. And Nicole, thank you for putting this all together.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you for the demo, the walkthrough. Like I said, we'll be sending the slides. You'll get the links to the videos in there. And then this session is recorded, so I'm playing around with uploading to YouTube to get the link to it. So either way, you're going to get a whole bunch of great content. The King of Prussia chapter, we do a ton of remote events. Our Agent Force event in January is going to be in person. And we're teaming up with the Westchester, PA Salesforce user group. And then we're going to do another Getting Unstuck session, TBD in January. But thank you all so much for spending the hour with us. Thank you again, Byron. Thank you, Danny, even though you had to drop. Very much appreciate everyone. And I'm going to send an email out after and put in there the swag recipients for those who had the most engagement. So thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.